we're not endorsing any political candidate on this show, just
No.
to be 100% clear. We're both going to individually vote. In my case, I've already voted by mail. We hold our politics close to our hearts, and you'll get a little bit of that, I think, if you watch the show. But we're not using the show in any way, shape, or form to endorse
As a,
either
yeah,
candidate
not a
one way or the other.
political, platform for that.
Yeah, a lot of the top, because we talk about conspiracies,
It's
we're
all
going to be
about that. Yeah.
touching politics, right? Like we have to.
I mean, we
Chris,
talked about it
Chris
last week and it's like I told you, I was like, it happened. It has happened.
The truth is out there, but so are lies.
And I don't know if you heard about the problems already that the machines are having. The Kentucky machine that wouldn't let you vote for Trump. Right? I think the issue was like if you picked Trump and you wanted to swap it, or you picked Harris and you wanted to swap it, it wouldn't let you swap. And that was like the actual error. And then they said that they couldn't recreate it, is what their findings were.
of course. Why would they be able to recreate a bug
But
that
see,
only
here's the
happens
thing: it's like it was
occasionally?
someone created it in a viral video. That's what it was. It's like, hey, you can't do this, but it's like they tried doing it. They're like couldn't recreate it. It was just
Yeah.
odd.
So this is where we're at, right? This is the most vocal, and I don't know if it's because I'm looking for it online, because we've been doing this for a year now, and I'm part of the conspiracy subreddit now and all that kind of stuff. So I do see more people talking generally about fringe belief systems.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't recall ever seeing this much conversation about election
Oh my god.
validity, the validity of election process. So, and that's basically what I think we both kind of predicted last week, was
Yeah.
that I think you leaned heavy into Trump is just going to basically
He's
repeat
already
the
saying that they're
playbook.
cheating. He's
But
already
both sides
saying
are saying that they're
they're
cheating.
both saying that they're cheating. Like I was like, are both sides? But see,
Uh,
things like this don't help the situation. Like the Kentucky thingy, and then the leaked passwords for Colorado. Did you hear about that?
I didn't. What is this?
So it says all leaked passwords for Colorado voting machines have been changed. Got posted 14 minutes ago on 9 News.
Leaked passwords?
Leaked
Like, what are these
passwords.
passwords to? Are they to like an admin panel on the voting machine? Or are
Yeah,
they
it was
individuals?
31 impacted counties.
What?
That's a
Can you pass me
password.
the article? Let me see this shit. We're gonna go over this, and I might actually just post this without editing. We're just gonna go raw into.
This just got this is what happened. Just watch the fucking article, bro.
Okay. Let me.
Oh my lord.
All leaked passwords from Colorado's voting machine have been changed. Let's watch it.
So Colorado has now changed all of its leaked passwords for the state's voting machines. Only took 6 days from when the breach was discovered. But in fairness, Democratic Secretary of State Jena Griswold waited 5 days to start changing the leaked passwords.
What?
Waited until the public found out. Democratic Governor Jared Polis got.
Hold on a second. You're telling me that these machines have been available for people to vote for, it sounds like 11 days, and at 5 of the days they knew about the issue?
6.
6, I'm sorry, 6 of the days?
And they did
half the time?
And then they did change it to 5 days, and only because they got leaked.
Involved offered additional staff, even the state's planes, to get those IT teams to all 31 impacted counties. Griswold did not tell the county election clerks or the governor until that breach was revealed. It was 5 days after she learned about it. The passwords are one of 2 passwords needed to make changes to the voting systems. These changes also require in-person access, so you have to get through the physical security. The state governor says that there is no evidence that any bad actors got inside the system. Governor says the process of changing the passwords was completed last night under the supervision of bipartisan elections workers. The Secretary of State's office has ignored Donald Trump's campaign's demands that they pause ballot processing and then rescan the ballots once the passwords were reset. The governor told us yesterday that campaigns can pay for a recount if they want one. Today, the Libertarian Party of Colorado filed a lawsuit against Griswold. They're asking.
Okay,
So Trump's campaign is already wants them to restart the ballot processing.
I think that's fair. I don't. Well, I mean, what do you think about? I think that that's fair.
I think it's fair. Like if they still have everything, which they should, right? Like legally they have to hang on to this thing, right? Like there's procedures to this. There has to be, please. I hope there is, right? And not as like a Trump supporter or defender. Like it is the legal thing to do.
Yeah, and let's get into it a little bit because the things that I heard, just like my background, right, is I'm a systems engineer. So I work in the web space doing automation, configuration management, some software development. It's a hodgepodge job. So it touches a lot of different technologies, everything from cloud computing down to, I've done desktop support in my life as well. And so when I hear something like, it sounded like there was a BIOS password that you could get into or some kind of admin panel for the voting machines. I'm not super familiar personally with the voting machines or how they work. I don't know if they're connected to the internet. I don't know if they have anything meaningfully that's got them connected in that way. I mean, we can look that up and we can get an answer to that. But when I hear that the passwords were available, but you needed physical access, the first thing that comes to mind is that if they are connected to the internet, there are ways to emulate having that physical access. I'm not making a claim, right, that was the case that was the case here, right? But I would say that for me personally, hearing something like this, it is a blemish on the election process.
This is the shit show that it's gonna be. But right
I
now,
told you it was going to be a shit show, didn't I?
and now they're backtracking, like saying like, hey, when you have the New York Times coming out saying, hey, the state said that it posed no threat, it posed no risk. That means they're trying to like correct their error. Like they're trying to correct it, like make it so that way there is.
Do you trust the New York Times? Do you trust any media outlet? Yeah. I will say,
it's kind of crazy that this is not headlining news. Like, hey, there's something wrong with the voting system here.
Well, I think that's a huge problem.
31 counties. Like, how big is a voting county? Like, I personally could not tell you, but I know that where I live, sometimes they change my voting place, and sometimes it's like on the other side of my town.
Yeah.
So it ends up being like, before it used to be down the street, but now it's like, at the local school that's like 4 miles away, 2 miles away. And I don't know, like that's like a lot of votes. I think you asked me last week. You asked me, I was like, do you think we have voter fraud? And I was like, absolutely. And I think that's what started this whole conversation. I was like, of course we do. Like, there has to be. Maybe not as bad as like some of the other countries. Like, we're not assassinating candidates, like in Mexico. I think, remember we talked about that. That was like a ridiculous amount of candidates that were getting killed and political corruption. Like, not like Brazil and Mexico, but there is some form of corruption.
Yeah, and I never felt it before. I mean, you had pointed out the Dominion voting machines from Al Gore era, and that was something that I recalled. That was the first year that I voted too, was the 2000 election. That's when I turned 18, and I was very excited to be part of the political process. I was like, give me that ballot. I want to have my voice heard, and and I voted for Gore at that time, and I didn't experience it. My experience now, looking back, is different than at the time. At the time, I was like, "Oh, my guy lost. That's a shame." He didn't get into the office. But now it's like, who knows what happened? I
mean, the theory is that he had it stolen from him. That's the theory. That they did a lot of machine fraud, and he won the unanimous vote, populist vote, and it just like swapped, and I think it left me kind of shocked. It left me kind of like, what happened? As you said, like, oh, my candidate lost, but something was like not right. And then he didn't contest it. He was one of the few people that I think I've ever experienced that was like, he took the loss and he was like that, and then he did some other things, right? He went a different venture in life, and I think it it left us with two things, right? It left us with what he did was for the greater good of the world, like what he started going into, like the whole like global warming thingy. But it also left us with what could have been,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what he was going to try to push and do, and maybe that's what they didn't want in office. If you think about conspiracy theory or go down that route.
Well, I'm wondering if it was a calculated risk now because Trump effectively did the opposite of what Gore did, right? Trump lost, and then
Mhm.
he rallied everybody to look at it as a fraud situation. And I wonder if the conversation at the time in the 2000s was how will it affect people's perception of the authenticity of the voting system if you are fighting this tooth and nail when it's this close of a split, right? And I wonder if that's the reason why I don't know, I'm just speculating, and I'm just wondering now if they were concerned about it undermining people's future confidence in the voting system. Because I imagine if we'd gone through that, you know, I would have been like 18 at the time, and I imagine I would have been like, yeah, hey, I think they should look into it if Gore was like up there, you know, saying this was stolen from me. And I do remember people saying that Bush stole the election, but as a, you know, 18-year-old, you know, I didn't really understand what that meant, or, you know, I didn't understand any of the nuance. It wasn't something that I felt, you know, because I, you know, was new to the whole thing. Like, so I don't know. Like, I wonder if that's what happened.
I mean, there was a lot of things that were like weird about that, like how, a lot of people, including myself, thought that George Bush was just a puppet, that Dick Cheney and his group were the
Mhm.
ones that actually running the country, right? Like the shadow council, you know.
Was
And
was
there
this the
was a
first time you voted?
yeah,
Okay.
because I was already of age when Bill Clinton, but the election was in November and I turned 18 in December, so I didn't vote
Okay.
for the big bill, you know.
I didn't know you were a December baby too.
Yeah, December.
Ah,
So
what? I'm a 14th. What are you?
the fifth, really? No
Yeah, no
shit.
shit, dude. Crazy.
No shit. That's crazy. Fellow Sagittarius.
Yeah.
But getting back to that, so I didn't vote for Bill Clinton because I wasn't old enough yet. But when this time came around, I think like yourself, I was excited to vote, and I finally voted, and I felt like, oh, my candidate lost, and then I started hearing everything, right? Because it was the young internet. People were sharing things, and the conspiracies started coming out, and people would release these videos, and you would watch them and just be like, wait a minute. And it was like one of those. It was like Votergate, that movie, that documentary I talked to you about, and then that kind of like, dude, there was a series of events that happened that started triggering that. That was like the discovery of that, the discovery of Coast to Coast AM, all around the
Mm.
same time. Um, uh, talk about the dark web, the discovery of the dark web, and what you could find. Then it wasn't even like Reddit, but it was like finding these forums, or I think there were boards back then, and then people talking about it. Even the finding like 4chan conspiracy and X and stuff like that. That's like started triggering me to keep going and going and going. But damn, I forgot where I was going. Anyways, like how like Al Gore. Then I heard that he lost, and then you started hearing like the relations with Dick Cheney, that he worked for, like I think it was like Halliburton, and Halliburton was one of the main like war generating companies, and he worked for all these companies, and then you started hearing about all the other companies and the interest he had with them and that he ran. So it was like a bunch of like conflicting um, relationships, and I was like, huh, that's kind of weird. And me being young, like I quite didn't understand that. And
Hmm.
now looking back at it, is going like, oh, that was problematic. Like, how were we okay with that?
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't
like
know,
I don't know
man.
if I don't know if you remember that Dick Cheney used to work for some of those like big old defense contract companies. And he had like ownership of it. It's so long ago that I couldn't even tell you like what he was involved with.
Yeah, it's wild, and I think, here we are, what, 20 years later, 24 years later, something like that. 24, obviously. Holy shit, 24 years, dude. I don't know that we can go back ever now to not being critical of, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it is a good thing that more people's eyes are on this process. But going back to why we're even talking about this, both of us are appalled by the lack of coverage, big media coverage. Well, okay, so here's the question, I guess, for this week. I can't put this into a short or anything, but I'm just curious, did your opinion change over this last week of anything that's going to happen for the election?
I don't think. Okay, so if Trump wins, I don't think there'll be riots. Like I don't think there'll be. I don't think there'll be civil unrest, right? If Harris wins, I don't also think there'll be any. Right, I think they're gonna prepare for it. It'll be out. Like it'll be like that weird thing that we had here in California during the George Floyd thing. Like I don't know if you remember that. Like it's like I don't know if it's something we all forgot about or are choosing to forget. It's just like we had this weird like nation riot. Like, like
Yeah, no, Portland was very, very noticeable.
we were
Yeah.
burning stuff like in Los Angeles. Stuff was being burned and looted and everything like that. And it's like they prepared for that. I remember they're like, "Do you want to lock up your store?" And I'm like, "Nope, I'm getting out. The curfew says 2 p.m. I want to be home by like 2 p.m. Like I'm getting the fuck out of here." And I think that's what it's going to be like. If I feel that there's any civil unrest, they're going to notify us, and all of us, they're going to tell you like, "You need to close, go home, like stay home."
Mhm.
Like I think that's what we'll experience. In some places like Minneapolis, like how it will burn in some areas might happen, but I don't think that bad. Which is crazy to say. Like if you really like, if I look back at this and I watch this 5-10 years from now, that it's such a crazy idea notion that I'm having this conversation that this potentially can happen, which is just wild. It's I don't know, like the season of Earth is just ridiculous.
I think we normalized flipping cars when your favorite sports team loses, and I think that that's what's going to happen during this
Like
election
what? The
cycle.
Dodgers won the World Series, bro. They burned a bus, and it was like, dude, looting and rioting. I was like, I loved it. 10 out of 10. People blowing
Yeah.
their hands off. I know you saw that stuff on Reddit. Like it was just wild.
Oh yeah.
Did you see that guy that
Yeah.
he parked his bike right next to the bus that they burned, and his bike didn't burn because there was a car between the bus and his bike, and it saved it. He's like, out of all the places
God.
I could have locked my bike, he said it was right next to that bus that burned.
Yeah, man, if people are behaving that way, that's why I'm bringing it up, is if people are behaving that way about sports, I think that we're probably going to be seeing some lasting effects from whatever the outcome of this election is. I think if Trump wins, I think we're going to see riots from liberal states. Possibly, I think we're going to have protests in Portland for sure. I don't know about Los Angeles, but I think Seattle and Portland will have protests.
Maybe in
And
New
they'll
York,
probably
dude,
get
just
violent.
because of all the wild things that he said about Puerto Ricans.
Oh yeah, no, I
Yeah.
saw maybe some backlash around that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
for
we
sure.
may have some. Like it may happen. It may happen.
Yeah,
But
and I think
yeah,
if Kamala wins, though, I think that we're probably also going to have
from the
Trump
Republican
supporters riot.
supporters, yeah, I think maybe potentially.
Yeah,
But I mean, we as a people, Americans, we're crazy, bro. Like there's I don't know what it is. Like the world has to see us as crazy, bro. And what I mean is, it's funny that what was it? The day the Dodgers won, they were out looting, thrashing everything, and a bus passes by, and they let the bus pass. This is the whole herd of it, and they're yelling "Metro, Metro, Metro," you know, and it's just like, and an hour later they burned the same thing. They burned the bus. It's just kind of like, you know, like what happens? Like what happens? Like how come they were okay? Like it's just like I had told my girls, it's like, you know what it is? It's like they let that happen is because a lot of us used to ride the metro, you know, people of color, even, you know, and poverty, somewhat wealthier. You don't have transportation, we use it. So it's like you kind of respect it a little bit, but at the end of the day, they didn't give a shit, they burned
Fucking wild, dude.
it. But that's what I'm saying.
Fucking
Like,
wild.
so going back to what you asked is, yes, some shit's gonna burn. Where? I don't know. How much? I don't know. It's just gonna happen.
Well, here's the deal. I hope whatever the outcome of the election is, I hope you're safe. I hope
Likewise.
your business helps keep you safe. I hope no one gets hurt during an election cycle. And I hope when we get back to this, you know, the week after the election, I hope we're both wrong, like seriously wrong. And I hope if, you know, if anything's fishy, I hope it gets sorted out as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I hope you're safe. You know, stay safe.
You know,
Like, I hope we're just wrong. You know, joking. All jokes aside, like, I really don't want anything to happen. I just want to
Yeah.
come home and be like, all right, you know, he won. All right, she won. You know, and just be like the next day, like, all right, everything business as usual. But that may happen, that may not. But I just want everybody to be safe.